This video is sponsored by StudioG.store. Stay tuned for more info on their exclusive products and innovative features. Affiliate link and discount code in the description. And none of that would have happened if the healer hadn't have failed their constitution save. So that's why the other person decided to get vaped by the dragon. Anyways, I have no idea when any of you are gonna get painted, so you're gonna have to remain in Project
break time is
Purgatory for a
over.
while.
Wake up, Liam. Come on, Liam. It's been a month since the last video.
Yeah, the Protagonist crew isn't going to finish itself.
Sorry, I was doing research. What's up, people? My name is Liam, and welcome to the Millennial Model Mayhem Content Zone. Last time, I customized the real grade high-new Gundam in a somewhat traditional way, but this time I'm doing another project for the tabletop game Gamma Wolves. I've already completed one crew for the game called the Antagonists, and in this video I'm going to be adding the next crew member to the Protagonists crew.
Originality is dead.
I'm starting the project with this high-grade Gushin Rebake full city. The inspiration for my kitbashing and color scheme are coming from the character Oxyotl, who's part of the Lizardman faction in the Warhammer Fantasy setting.
Also known as a surf one.
Skink up! Some of you may already know I'm a big fan of these scaly boys, but I'm gonna save my fanboying for now because not only are we back into the comfort zone with my hand painting, aka Model Mayhem style, but we're also back to the
Clacks.
I find model kits like these that are a little flimsy and unstable, but also relatively affordable, are quite ideal candidates for my Model Mayhem style, because the pose will mostly end up being locked in place. I bought this particular kit on a whim because I wanted the pair of giant scissors, obviously, and I had heard that this kit was particularly unstable, and the rumors were true. But I also knew that I could have a great time kitbashing it with some of the other Iron-Blooded Orphans models I have, which I'll be doing with this Gundam Astaroth. I usually don't hesitate to pick up models from this series even if I don't like it out of box. I almost always end up with pretty good kitbashing materials, and I just really like the Iron-Blooded Orphans designs. Thus concludes my brief review of the high-grade Gushin Rebake Full City. It's not my favorite Gushin. That honor would have to go to this absolute unit, which I'm still trying to get my hands on.
Oh lord, he out of stock.
To start off the kitbashing process, I figured out which parts of the Gushin and Astaroth to use. The leftovers will be valuable additions to the Gundam graveyard. Next, I thought about how Oxyotl is a ranged damage dealer, and that helped me decide to use this gun originally from the LBX Fenrir kit I painted last year, along with these wires that I'll repurpose as power cables. The last key ingredient to this kitbash are the 3D printed G parts from StudioG.store. I'm not making any modifications to the legs from Astaroth, so all I need to do are remove the stickers and any residue with some tape. Yes, sometimes I use the stickers out of box if I don't know whether I'm gonna customize something. It just looks slightly better on display, alright? I'm using the front waist piece from the Gushin kit somewhere else, so in order to use the pointier version from Astaroth, I need to saw off a portion so that it can be glued flat to the slightly varied waist of the Gushin. I'm trying really hard not to make jokes about the shape and location of this piece right now. Next, I'm slightly modifying some arm pieces from Astaroth to work with the Gushin's forearms, because I liked the detail on Astaroth's biceps slightly more. The left arm is getting a dedicated melee weapon in the form of the secondary big hand from Astaroth, which is being modified to just be a big power fist. Then the armor plate can be sharpened and glued together with some extra Gushin armor to make this arm even beefier. Now for the head and torso, I'm going to use this large shoulder piece from Astaroth, along with the previously mentioned front waist piece of the Gushin to make something that resembles a large battery, one that could power a big laser gun, you know? After a decent amount of sanding to shape the waist piece, I started using those G parts to fill in the voids and give it a more complex look. And to finish it off, I trimmed these extra Gushin head pieces to go along the sides. Last to bash is the gun from LBX Fenrir, which is big enough next to the Gushin that I want to have a nice hefty arm-mounted system. After figuring out the orientation and clipping the handle, I grabbed the plastic cement and sanding sponges so I could get to work removing the massive seam line. Then I started bashing together parts from the bits box in order to make a believable mount for the gun. I ended up having to extend one side of the gun with plastic card to fill in a gap to give another glue connection point. Then, to add more detail to the gun, I modified some more small bits from the box on top, then more matching G parts all around the back half. I used some other G parts as well as a piece of wire on the underside to help blend together the handle and armor pieces. Last detail was to glue a polycap and random inner frame piece onto the back of the gun to make a plug for the wires of the battery pack to go into. For the base, I'll be using another one of these 100mm Reaper products. So, with all this in hand, it's time to clean up and sand the imperfections. While I do that, here's a quick word about today's sponsor. StudioG.store. If you saw my last video, you'll know that Studio G kindly sent me a package showing off his store's innovative new Ship Without the Box feature, as well as some custom water slide decals that I used on my Hi-Nu. The G parts on this kitbash were really easy to use, and all I had to do was a bit of sanding and supergluing. So if you're looking for a great place for your Gunpla shopping needs, or want to pick up some exclusive products like G-Paint, which I've also had a really easy time using across multiple builds now, you should check out StudioG.store. And you can use code MMMayhem5 for a $5 discount. Thank you Studio G for sponsoring the video. The next stage is to partially lock in the pose for painting. I understand some might view gluing Gunpla in place like this as heresy, but for my style of painting with acrylics like this, I don't like to have moving parts that could potentially damage paint as I handle the model throughout the long painting process. Ultimately, I'm not really worried about how people view this part of the process, because all I really care about is whether it helps me achieve what I set out to create.
Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best, brother.
So what, now you're just quoting the 4 agreements? The airbrushing stage of this project is very brief, just a quick coat of black primer for the model, gray primer for the base, then some thinned dark iron gets sprayed onto the exposed underframe parts. Since this is the 5th base I'll be doing for my Gamma Wolves cruise, I decided to share the entire process via livestream, so check that out in my channel's playlists if you're interested in seeing that. 2 rounds of dry brushing with dark iron and silver are what's starting off the brush painting process, because it makes sense to do the messiest parts first. Then I have to figure out what I want to do with the color separation and lay down the corresponding base coats, which is just black primer for the black sections, then gray primer for what's going to be the orange armor. Painting orange is similar to yellow and white in that it requires a bit more effort, so I have to do the good old 2 thin coats. The sections that I want to have glowing effects also got a base coat of gray, followed by arcane blue. Then I finished this stage off with snakebite leather on a few small sections that I wanted to try another attempt at non-metallic metal gold with. As I said before, the color inspiration for this project is coming from Oxyotl, whose model is orange in the Total War Warhammer games. In the 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles Lizardman Army book, he doesn't have any artwork, but his painted miniature matches. In the 7th edition book, he has artwork, and no mini, but for some reason he doesn't look like a chameleon. In the 6th edition book, he's just not there. In the 5th edition book, he's back to being a chameleon, but he's called Oxyotl. And this concludes my useless Warhammer fantasy tangent.
Back to painting.
Now that the colors are blocked in where I want them, it's time to block in all the edge highlighting. The orange sections get edge highlighted with pure orange fire, a very convenient and complementary color to hot orange. The black edges get a thick line of coal black mixed with pure black. I like the lines nice and thick because this shade is going to dry really dark and it'll help transition to the extra crispy lines at the end. Then the snakebite leather sections get highlighted with pure Baylor brown. Next, it's time for one of my favorite parts, glazing in those gradients. The orange armor will use this straightforward combo of oranges, yellow, and glaze medium, and I like to start at the highlight end with a mix of golden yellow and orange fire to start figuring out where all the brightest highlights of the armor should be. I'm relying on my knowledge of lighting here to effectively guess what I think it should look like, but the way I see it, I'm painting something really fantastical that I can imagine being in an animation or a video game, so if my choices aren't scientifically accurate, I don't really care. After I've got the highlights across the armor, the long process of continuing to glaze through the gradient back down to hot orange, and back up to the golden yellow mix begins. This is usually where I get the most in the zone when I'm painting in Model Mayhem style, so it's a little hard for me to articulate what the process is like, but I can say for sure that having a wet palette is essential for keeping all the shades of the gradient on hand at all times. I will often be glazing one end, only to quickly switch colors to blend in a different section on the fly. The further I move along in this stage, the more I'm thinning the paint with glaze medium in order to get better transitions. When I'm satisfied with the glazing, I go back to straight up orange fire to tidy up the original edge highlight, then mix in golden yellow for another round of sharper edge highlights. The final round of almost pure golden yellow only highlights what I see as the sharpest edges that would catch the light. When I'm deep and in the zone during these lengthy parts of the project, I find myself most at ease and not worrying or being anxious about what exists outside my control. Maybe that's why I went slightly unhinged in the last video.
For free, and then we'll start paying you like a little bit, but we're not gonna...
Speaking of, I thought I should try and do a quick follow-up on some of the stuff I ranted about then. I just wanted to say that I think the main reason being a content creator can easily become frustrating is because there isn't really one proven formula for success. You can find successful channels from a range of production quality, consistency, clickbait, whatever metric you want to call relevant. And it also doesn't matter if you're a creator or a user, you ultimately don't have any control over how the platform works, and you can't change what kinds of content someone wants to engage with. because the YouTube experience is so specifically curated to your individual tastes.
However, like I said before, the process for making my videos continues to be one of the most creatively satisfying things I've ever done. And when I think about it, I draw inspiration from a very wide range of YouTube videos. Everything from Action Button's 6-hour review of an iconic Japanese dating sim, to Studson Studios' impressive kitbashing skills. And none of that would be possible without the platform that YouTube provides, whether it's an even playing field or not. It's not. By the way, thanks for the shout-out, Studson.
Enough pontificating. Return to painting at once.
Right. Finishing the black armor is the same straightforward process of edge highlighting, with the first round being pure coal black, and the following passes getting progressively more white mixed in. I approach this in the same way I do the orange, but on the important areas like the gun, I try a little harder to make the work clean, because there isn't a vibrant gradient to distract from any mistakes. I wasn't quite feeling the vibe for the non-metallic metal gold I was planning to do earlier, so I actually changed the plan and covered up the brown with dark iron so I could apply one of my favorite gimmicks, shifter paint. I decided Forest Flux would be the best match for all the other colors present on the model, and I made sure to apply 2 thin coats using actual thinner because brushing this kind of paint on requires slightly more effort. Then I used some silver in the mix to give it a really basic edge highlight.
Wait, you can't just put true metallic next to non-metallic metal techniques like that.
Red pill, blue pill, I'm taking the pla pill. Just like my patrons.
Whoa, incredible transition.
Are you interested in benefits like early access to content, HD wallpapers, and direct messaging? Consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/millennialmodelmayhem. It's the best way to support my productions, and you can have your name on display next to these fine sprinkles. And if you'd like to be more generous with your support, you can join the Mayhem Machines Bo, Muspelheim, Ryan Robinson, or the Gog Hands, Dolfo and Janelle.
The glow effects, just like the black armor and base, are needed to tie in this model with the other protagonists, so the recipe remains the same. First, the surrounding area is given a light glaze of Meridius blue, followed by even lighter glazes of Arcane blue, then adding some verdigris into the mix for the final glazes. I'm not as practiced with painting glow effects like this, so I'm a little torn about how messy my work gets here, but I always think back to the concept of tabletop quality in the mini painting sphere. The idea is that models are usually going to be looked down at on the tabletop from a distance, so it's not worth spending the extra time to meticulously refine every detail and correct every imperfection, because hardly anyone will even notice. Much like my hybrid painting style, these Gunpla projects sit in the middle between being a display piece but also being made for the game Gamma Wolves. I do say though, when I look at them from a distance, the glow effect looks as intended. To finish off the glow effect, I stipple on some verdigris followed by pure white. Finally, to protect all my hard work, I thinned down some matte varnish and applied 2 coats through the airbrush.
Well, guess I'm a post-apocalyptic mecha pilot now.
Another project for Gamma Wolves is now complete, as well as another step along the path to further developing my model mayhem style. This is the 6th model I've painted like this, and now that I've got a good selection to compare to, I can definitely see improvements I've made. I'm saving the complete deep dive here for later though, you'll understand why later. I feel like I hit the right balance in painting messy and fast for tabletop quality versus painting meticulous and slow for display. The painting process felt very efficient for the most part throughout, and every time I look at it, the shading work I did hits just right. I'm also pleased with how well the G-parts and Kitbash components blend in. I'm not sure if it's because orange is a color that pops more in general compared to what I usually paint, but I'm having a great time just staring at these tasty tones, and of course it contrasts amazingly well with the base and teal accents. Almost makes me want to give it a lick for a refreshing citrus flavor. As for the official loadout for the mech and Protagonists crew, I'm gonna save it for the next video because...
there's going to be a 4th protagonist. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. If you would like to support my content creation endeavors, consider joining the Patreon, becoming a YouTube member, shopping through my affiliate links, or just giving me that good old free engagement. Links for everything can be found in the video description. And thanks again to everyone who lent me their voice acting talents for this video. That's all for now, so I'll see you next time in the Millennial Model Mayhem content zone.
The algorithm demands that you lock on notifications and annihilate the like and subscribe buttons. And leave a comment.